Welcome to another edition of Understanding the Science of You, where this one is just going to be focused on me sharing some of my thoughts as it pertains, providing context to understand the science of you, right? Because our environment, our surroundings, what we're told, what we're taught, all of those things play significant influences in our perspective of self, right? And so, what if the imposed realities aren't our realities? And so, what if those realities that are being imposed on us are causing us to feel things that may be true for others, but not true for us? So it can make us feel crazy. It can make us feel like what we're seeing is not real, make us question things, make us wear masks or try to pretend to be things because being ourselves is not what we're taught is what's normal. But what if it is what's normal? What if it's a different person's reality being imposed, and it's not just a universal reality? So let me step back and explain what I mean. Okay, so a shared reality is that all of us living, or anybody listening to this podcast, is residing on Earth, most likely in the United States. But we're going to start with the guarantee that it's a shared reality that we're living on Earth. And it's also a shared reality for many of us that we're living in the United States of America as citizens. And inside of that shared reality, then there's going to be a state. Let's say I reside in the state of Michigan, and so then the shared reality is that we live in the state of Michigan. Now, where the dimensions of reality become different is our individual perspectives and our individual dimensions of reality inside of living in Michigan, in the United States of America, on planet Earth, right? So if somebody identifies themselves as a libertarian, as a Democrat, as a Republican, their dimension of reality is going to be different from the other ones, right? There are times when, differences are meant to be learned from. They're meant to, that's how evolution occurs. If we're all thinking the same and we're all doing the same, like, I don't understand how anything gets any different, right? If we're all living inside the same box, right? So somebody's got to be thinking differently to keep it, to prevent that from happening. And so, how do we have different realities coexisting to enrich existence, right? For all, right? It's not cool for one group to be imposing its will, on another. So let me talk about some examples of how that happens in, today, and how that might affect yours, understand the science of you. So here we go. Look, this one happens all the time. And it gives me a sad face. And look, and there was a time, and by the way, I should also clarify that for a vast majority of my life, my dimension of reality was that of the status quo. It wasn't this dimension of reality that I'm speaking to and speaking from today, right? So, I'm also trying to bridge gaps as I go to build bridges to help each other demonstrate empathy and compassion, and then which then lends itself to ultimately support. One of the examples of reality that gets imposed is that somebody says, well, they just need to work harder. I did it, so can they. Well, that reality states that would mean that all things are equal, and it's just then a matter of knowledge or competence. Well, my experience in being around successful people, whether you want to measure, let's just call it economics, because that's in a capitalist society, that tends to be how it is. So I've had the pleasure of experiencing economic success myself, being around people that have experienced economic success to the tunes of 9 and 10, and 10-digit, 11-digit figures of wealth. And what I can tell you is that nobody does it alone. Nobody does it alone, whether it be through access, whether it be through the choices that were available to them, whether it was just because through exposure, getting into places, having doors opened up, conversations, just even being exposed, and seeing to believe in what's possible, and then you can achieve it in itself is huge, right? And so I think that's an imposed reality that gets said that people just need to work harder, or that, really, and that's not true. There's a tremendous amount of highly intelligent, competent people that just haven't caught a break, and just haven't caught the break that they need. And they deserve to be supported, appreciated, respected just as much as anybody else. All right. Well, here's another big one. Ooh. women, that women's roles are defined or are less capable or equal than men, which requires them to need male support, permission, and protection to feel safe. Wow. I mean, in what, I don't know, how this one came to be, but the fact is of the inequality, um, and and I'm just going to call it inequality. Let's just talk about one and just the rights of owning body, right? Men don't need anyone's permission to make a decision about what they want to do with themselves, but somehow women do. Not cool, man. It's just not cool. And so I understand that that there's legal things. I understand things are the status quo, but that doesn't mean that that isn't an imposed reality. Look, as a spiritual individual, I say all things come from the Creator, and the Creator created all things equal, and yet, somehow man chose to make them, or humanity chose to make them, um, not equal. And that perspective will absolutely impact somebody's understanding the science of themselves. And nobody's will should be imposed upon somebody else for anybody to feel, that they are any less equal than another. Um, this is, and which ties into the one set of thinking and beliefs in the form of systems and infrastructures which favor hierarchy over independent providers. Right? It's harder, and so the current reality that is imposed is that there's a system in place. Right? You go to school, you go to more school, you and at the school, which this also ties into the a common definition and understanding of intelligence and competency is school, and intelligence and competency being demonstrated through uh, diplomas and grades, which I'm not saying that that isn't a way of doing it. I'm saying that it's not the only way to do it, right? What I'm saying is that there are the schools that teach you how to operate inside of the system, but there are not this but there's not the same amount of schools that teach you how to be an entrepreneur and how to evolve and continue to evolve the system and to make sure that it's a system that treats and supports and is fair and reasonable for all, right? um, Another one is that the reality is determined and defined by strictly the claims of science. Well, Simon, science says this. Well, let's not forget that science is describing something that exists, right? Science isn't pulling something out of thin air and making it up, right? And so it's a very slippery slope when the only things that are believed that are true is what science says, because science is meant to help to take what the unknown to be known, right? It's not meant to put us into a box of understanding and knowing everything, right? I mean, that would be a pretty sad existence. What are some other things here? Just talking about this before, right? That segments of the population are less valuable or equal, and as a result, are not provided their proper accommodations, right? And this is a really slippery slope because legally there's a need for different people to take on different identities and different labels to receive the support and the accommodations for themselves. However, that gets weaponized, and and somebody will say that somebody is disabled or mental illness, and so therefore they aren't their word, or they're not as credible as somebody else, or they're not as capable as somebody else, or because their upside isn't as great as somebody else, they don't deserve to have the services and accommodations, right? All of these things are absolutely false. All of these things, um, are imposed upon us. A one size fits all approach to medical and psychiatric definitions of being healthy. Let me tell you, one thing that I've definitely experienced by being around a wide variety of people is that the people that receive what gets rewarded in society as being successful very rarely fit into a healthy medical chart or psychiatric chart. It's quite the opposite, right? It's being outside of those things that's what drove them to be their success, right? And so I'm not saying that one should fit inside of it or one that should fit outside of it. I'm just simply stating that it's not a one size fits all approach that's guaranteed success and that's guaranteed any sort of outcome, right? This is all parts of got to figure stuff out for yourself, right? And speaking of success, right, the fact that the accumulation of material goods and social standing being used to define success. Look, hey man, I played the game, right? I played this reality. I've played a lot of these realities sitting on the one side. I benefited from the status quo, right? I benefited from that quote unquote box that was created. I benefited from those accommodations. Right. And so I checked the boxes and I did the things that society said I was supposed to do. And, and it just, for me personally, I cannot say that I led a fulfilling life, a purposeful life, right? I led a life for everybody else, doing what I thought I was supposed to do. And it made me who I wasn't, and it made me, and it was miserable. Or I allowed it I allowed it to allow me to become something that I wasn't, right? In order to achieve these things, and so, but unfortunately, the things that I do enjoy don't necessarily receive compensation. So there's got to, so but where's the middle ground in society providing the accommodations and different ways to be a productive member of society besides going into the capitalist system? What we all have things to offer. So what are the other sets of choices and options that we can have to do that, right? None of us created Earth, and so for to not provide equal access to it, you know, it just does not seem fair, right? Um, oh yeah, this is another, like, it kind of ties into some of the stuff that I was talking about, right? That success being achieved individually as opposed to communally or in the form of catching a break through luck, access, or connections, right? It's really easy then to not have to feel like the need to pay it forward if everything if it's individualized versus somebody paid it forward to you. And so that gets imposed and what it takes to be successful. Hey man, breaks come in all shapes and sizes, and who is anybody to claim that any one person that wants to be a productive member of society is any more or less capable than anybody else, um, and to determine who should get access to what accommodations and resources to be able to be that productive member of society, however they define it for themselves, and to have that quality of life. Right? Everybody who wants to do that should have access to that. Let's see here. Oh, this is another real challenging one. Look, is that everyone's living at the same point in their evolution, and that any differences are like some DNA luck or misfortune, um, or karma or things of that nature. There's a whole wide variety of reasons why everybody has their individualized experience that they have, why they come wired, why they're wired, to learn what they need to learn and to experience what they need to learn, to experience it in the way that they need to experience it, to learn through it. And look, man, we didn't know, some of us have evolved ourselves, and our higher selves have evolved more than others, right? And to expect that to be a one size fits all approach creates a lot of trauma for those then that don't fit in. And that doesn't mean that, and I don't mean that to imply again, right, that anyone is any better or than anyone else. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that people are different, but the school system only accommodates one type of person, right? Like or what I should say is the provided school system, right? The provided school system, generally speaking, teaches you how to fit into the system. Where if private school teaches you how to both fit into the system, but also think for yourself and how to operate within that system. So why shouldn't everybody be taught how to do that? Hmm. So that's all I'm saying about that one. Um, yeah, the definition I've talked about is definition, understanding of intelligence and competency being defined and determined by standardized testing. There are plenty of people that have started up, many of the companies that did not follow the traditional path. So what does that mean? That if you take a look at those that started the companies, didn't follow the traditional path. That non-traditional path, though, created the path for everybody else that followed the traditional path to fall into, right? The quote unquote system. Right? So both things are needed. So why are both not fostered? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. This is another one. The ability to communicate verbally being used as the measuring stick to define, conscious or sentient life. Um, Look, man, people communicate verbally. They don't understand each other, even when they speak the same language. All right. So if we really want to learn how to respect and appreciate life, we definitely need to understand the ability to communicate well beyond simply being able to talk to each other, right? And this was an imposed reality that happened to me, at dinner. We're talking about some of my past. Was that the the reality is that my history can get viewed as, look at what I've overcome. I either went to, and because I didn't understand my wiring and my activity to things, I thought I was crazy, right? So I spent time in either rehabs or psych wards. Because people would say, "Oh, look at what you overcame." No, I don't. And so can other people overcome that. No, you're missing the whole point of me sharing. If you think that the point is to say what I overcame, the point is, why did I have to go through it? And why did others have to go through it? I wasn't broken. I didn't need to go through these things. What I needed was somebody who understood a different physiology, who could help me to understand myself as having a different physiology. Okay, and so that's the point. And so, look, there's all kinds. And so, I'm not saying that these realities that I'm pushing back against aren't realities of other people. I lived in those realities. I benefited in those realities, right? But now I've lived in the other side of those realities, and I understand now. And not living in those realities, right? I understand the positives and the negatives, or the what it means to be supported, the quality of my life when I'm quote unquote go with the system and with the flow, and when I don't, right? And to understand that type of injustice. And so when it comes to understand the science of you, understanding how the this imposed context, you know, is not what should be used in totally in understanding the quality, understanding self. Now, yes, respecting and understanding different societal norms and standards is important if that's where you choose to spend your time. Yeah, but look, you is you, right? And only you is going to take care of you. Only you is going to pay your bills. Only you is going to be the one to love you if you look in the mirror and needs to be at peace with you, right? You need to love you, right? And so learning to love how to use you is not going to come from looking at all these other external places. They're just different ways to help you understand what you do and don't stand for on your path to learning how to accept you as you, appreciate you as different, and love all of those things about you, and giving yourself grace for all that it took for you to experience yourself as you in some cases in a world that wasn't designed for you, right? And so that makes you a pretty awesome person, in my opinion. So I hope you have yourself a fantastic and awesome week.